Well, let's call this meeting to order. Are you on there, Brandon? If you are, you're on mute.
Yep, I'm here just as Mark, so ready when you are.
Okay. Let's call this meeting to order. Can you call the roll, please? Did you remember we were going to do that tonight?
Yeah, you're talking to me.
I am. I'm sorry, Brandon.
Sure. I don't have a list of people's names, but I think I can do this. So we'll start with you, Margie.
I'm here, finally.
Okay. What about, is Vic here?
Here.
Okay, what about Bob?
Here.
Eric? Nope.
I don't see him.
Pat?
Here.
Michelle?
Here.
She's there. She's on mute, but I can see her.
And then Brad?
Here.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that's 7. I think that's it.
There's Ken.
Oh, and Ken. Sorry, Ken.
No worries. I'm here.
Sorry. All right, that should do it.
Okay, well, seeing that we do have quorum, let's move on to the approval of minutes from our December 7th meeting. I'm sure you all had a chance to review those. Would someone like to make a motion to accept them?
Motion to approve the minutes from the December meeting.
Thank you, Bob. Do I hear a second?
I can set that. Laura.
Okay, Pat or Ken, I wasn't sure who did that one.
I put it down as Bob and Ken.
Okay, thank you. All in favor of approving the minutes as written, say aye.
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 All right, then, let's move on to our Citizens Climate Lobby. And thank you so much for being so patient and waiting for us, for me. I assume that you've tested and you can screen share and do everything you need to.
I have not tested that yet. I'm glad Brandon is here, so in case there's a problem. So let me see if I can share my content. That's screen one. It wants me to enter information again. Are you guys seeing my screen?
I'm seeing your screen.
Oh, well, that's very exciting. Okay, good.
That's the beginning of your PowerPoint.
Wonderful. Because it's showing up. This is the first time I've ever dealt with two screens. So, new technology to Kate.
Tell me about it, Kate. Tell me about it.
I know. So should I just dive in?
Well, I guess I could introduce you. We do want to thank Citizens Climate Lobby for coming to our meeting tonight to explain to us about the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act, which is, I take it, kind of a takeoff on carbon fee and dividend from before, right?
Yes.
And for those of you who don't know about Citizens Climate Lobby, I'm sure that they will be giving us quite a bit of information about it tonight, but it is a marvelous group that is quite widespread now, and the government just should pay attention. So go for it, Kate.
Okay, well, I'm grateful to be here and thank you for letting us have some time in your agenda. I did not set my timer yet, so I want to make sure I honor your time and don't take up too much of it. I will try to speak for 20 minutes.
Kate, I may be a little lenient tonight.
Okay, depending on how your agenda looks, but I will try and only take 20 minutes. And I also wanted to thank my other CCL members who are here, Jill Horowski, Michael Grafe, Linda Ganzel, John Duffin, Ron Jones, Pat Dwyer-Hallquist, and I believe, Margie, you are also a member of CCL, are you not?
Peripherally, yes. I'm a member, I just don't do anything.
You get emails and so on.
Yes.
So let me explain to you that Citizens Climate Lobby is a volunteer-led organization. We are now about 190,000 strong, started about 13 years ago, looking at what are good climate solutions. And I won't go too much into how it was founded, but our founder decided that he wanted to work on the one most important climate solution that he was aware of based on research. And that climate solution is making sure that we are able to take carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, reduce the amount of carbon dioxide we're putting in into the atmosphere. And the way of doing that is creating legislation. And one of the things that we know is that people that we think that in our sustainability communities, I worked on the Sustainable Canina Committee for a very long time, from 2007 to about 2017. And we work on a scale of, that's pretty small. And we try and do things that are going to be impactful, but we know that to have a large impact, we need legislation at the national level to be able to manage it. So we are talking to local municipalities to look at showing support for this legislation, because our legislators, national, both state and federal, but we're primarily talking about federal now, need to know that their communities want action on climate. You know, they listen to the squeaky wheels, and we need to be able to show them that climate change is an important issue for us and that we want to be able to have an impact at a national level with legislation. And so local municipalities supporting the bill help us when we go and lobby with our congressmen and our senators to show how many people in our environment, in our neighborhoods, in our communities care. So what we're going to be talking about is this one bill, HR 763. It will have a new number in January. January, whenever they reintroduce it. It doesn't actually exist right now because all the bills, as you know, have expired. It will still be called the nasty long name of the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act. We don't like the name, but it's the best we can do. But it is a solution to climate change in that it reduces the amount of carbon dioxide put out into the atmosphere and incentivizes businesses and people to go for lower carbon options. So let me just make sure I know how to advance my slide. There we go. We started talking to local communities about a year and a half ago. We've been speaking to Outagamie County and Appleton. We know that the local communities are starting to be impacted by climate change much more significantly. It's becoming noticeable in storms. And the July 19th, 2019 storm, you'll probably remember, wiped out power in the valley for quite a couple of days, cost a lot of money, created a lot of flooding. It was a very clear sign that things were happening in our area. And as you know, Green Bay was flooded. They had a huge amount of rain. They continue to have flooding problems in Green Bay. And they have I know their sustainability and board is looking at solutions, long-term solutions to their flooding issues. We know that in Appleton, it was more than $715,000. And that, of course, climbed. This is from July 21st, 2 days after the storm. We understand that heat and temperature changes are going to cause some issues in the future. We are going to see increased numbers of days over 100 degrees. You can see that right now we have 0 days over 100 degrees, and by 2100 is anticipated to be between 5 and 10 days over 100 degrees, possibly as high as 10 to 20. I'm going to go through these next very quickly. These are projected annual average temperature for summer and winter. Just note that the projected change in winter temperature is about 9 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than we had seen. That's what's projected for 2055. So that causes all kinds of differences in our area. We also see significant increase in precipitation. As you probably know, since 2017, 2018, 2019, we had a number of very, very severe rainstorms. As Madison got flooded out, had some serious issues, and questions come up all the time are how are we planning to manage these issues in the future when we have these severe weather effects? And that costs our local communities, our counties, and our states a lot of money. This is just an example. You probably are familiar with how the increasing severe weather is costing us a lot of money. The other thing that's interesting is how people are changing their opinions of climate. And I need to look over. Okay, I have to squint a minute. in 2018, these numbers had significantly changed from earlier. I don't have the earlier graphs, but all of a sudden we had upwards of 60% of people who are now alarmed or concerned about global warming, as opposed to doubtful or dismissive of global warming. That we saw a very significant change between 2016 and 2018, shifting to the left-hand side of this graph, so that we know that local communities, people are starting to care a lot more and pay attention. I do also have the 2020 data, and you might note that these two numbers have gone down slightly. Cautious has increased a lot, and dismissive has decreased, and people have shifted to doubtful. It's any kind of shift to the left-hand side shows an increase in concern and awareness of the global climate issues. So Winnebago County, I was able to gather this information from the reference below, which is the Yale Program on Climate Change Communication. I can send you this link. You can look up Winnebago County. The data goes from the whole country, all down to the state, down to the county level, down to the congressional level, if you prefer. And it will answer, they answer about 45 questions about belief in climate in your region. 66% of Winnebago County citizens believe global warming is happening. 66% believe that global warming will harm future generations. They don't think it's going to harm us now, but they do believe it's going to harm future generations. So that percentage is in the 40s for will harm me personally. 72% of Winnebago County believes that we should regulate CO2 as a pollutant. 65% of Winnebago County believes that we should require fossil fuel companies to pay a carbon fee. So when we talk to our legislators, we can, from this data, I get to tell Mr. Grothman, these people, the people who are your voters in your congressional district are concerned about these issues. And Republican or Democrat, 72% of Winnebago County residents believe that we should be regulating CO2. This information might be handy to you in the future, and I can certainly provide you the links, as I said. So what we're here to do today is to talk to you about the potential for Oshkosh becoming a city that endorses the Carbon Fee, Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act. And the endorsement, again, it's because we want to have more of our communities speaking up so that our legislators know that we are concerned. And so I will explain what this act is and how it works. And you can stop me for questions if you need to. That's not a problem. I have a couple of graphs or diagrams in here that'll start to explain it. The bill has been in Congress for the last session and a half, I would say. It's gone to committee in Congress. It's gone through 2-3 committees, and it had not passed out of committee. We were hoping it would this year, and then COVID-19 hit, and then that was that. So we know it will be introduced at the end of this month again. It has 89 sponsors in Congress. There is a companion bill that was introduced or was being formulated in the Senate. That will also be introduced, we believe, in January or early February. So what this does is it charges a fee on fossil fuels at the source of the production. So oil, gas, coal are the high carbon fuels, and those are the primary producers of carbon dioxide. It charges a fee on how much carbon dioxide every ton produces, and that is, people can call it a carbon tax, but in this bill it is not a tax, it is a fee that goes back to the households in the United States. We also like to call it the carbon cash back bill, because every American citizen will get a dividend on a monthly basis based from this bill. You may be familiar that system already exists in Alaska for oil revenues. Alaskan residents get a dividend for oil. And I'm trying to check my phone to see if I know what time it is. Yep, okay. So the fee is charged at the source by the government, or paid to the government, goes through the Treasury Department. The Treasury Department, it's about 2% is what they figure it's going to cost them to process the fee. And then the remainder of that amount is returned to every household in the United States. Every American citizen gets a dividend. And that is managed like your tax returns would be managed. it will go directly into your bank account. If you don't have a tax identification number for whatever reason, there's a way of getting the government to recognize you, and they will also pass it into your bank account. The other piece here is the carbon border adjustment, which has been making the news lately the last couple of weeks, because we know that the European Union will be creating and enforcing a carbon border adjustment starting in 2023. And I'll explain what that is. And then there is limited regulatory adjustment that goes along with this. So let me see what my next slide talks about. Oh, we'll say I'll go through the slides. I always talk ahead, sorry. So this is the revenue neutral part. The government will not keep any of the fees collected, so the size of government doesn't grow. This becomes very interesting to people because people don't want to create another system that's going to make our government larger. This does not do that. It uses government agencies that are already in place. Families get paid. So the fee starts out at a fairly low level and then ramps up every year that the bill is enacted for, which is about 20 years, I think, as long there's a way that they decide when they're going to stop when the bills come to its fruition. But we'll say that the bill starts out charging $15 a metric ton on carbon dioxide, and it will ramp up at $10 a metric ton every year after that. So this projection of $4,410 for a year is after 10 years that the bill's been in effect. So the year one, you'd get significantly less, but it will ramp up, and it will continue to ramp up until we've cut off the level of carbon. We cut off at the level of carbon dioxide that the bill targets. It decreases the amount of carbon emissions by 40% over the next 12 years, which is also that's pretty fast. And if you remember what the IPCC report that came out in October 2 years ago said, we had about 12 years. Now we have about 10 and a bit to be able to impact the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere before we're in some serious trouble. This bill changes the amount of carbon dioxide very quickly, or decreases emissions very quickly. It's very good for people because we know people die because of pollution. People have a lot of respiratory issues because of air pollution. And this improves air quality significantly, and again, very quickly. Jobs are created because as we start paying people dividends, that increases the local economy and stimulates local economies because people have more money in their pockets. And the dividend situation is not based on your carbon footprint or how much money you make. Every American gets the exact same dividend. So that means that Bill Gates and I will get the same dividend. And it will make more difference to me than it will to Bill Gates. But what we know is that money, that dividend in the pockets of people who are at the lower end of the economic spectrum, they spend it, and they spend it in local economy. And the modeling that's been done around this shows they will spend it on healthcare, most likely, and in the service industry. Both of those things will create jobs. So the jobs that this bill creates are not green jobs. Those will happen in excess of this when industries start moving towards greener, low carbon fuels, and they have to start creating infrastructure for that. These jobs, the 2.1 million that are projected, are in local economies. So it's effective. We know it's good for people. We know it stimulates the economy. It is a bipartisan solution because it doesn't increase the size of government. Oh, I didn't talk about the border adjustment yet. We'll see if we get to that. It's revenue neutral, as I mentioned. The bipartisan part is that it stimulates businesses. It's a marketplace solution to reducing carbon dioxide and reducing carbon dioxide emissions. Businesses get to choose, do I want to stay with coal with this increasing fee, or do I want my energy to come from solar panels, or do I want to have my energy companies, my energy vendors invest in other things so that I won't have to pay this increasing fee? The other thing is that it allows innovation. And again, we talked about the fact that it's not growing the government. It also decreases regulation. If you remember, there was a limited regulatory adjustment. there are a number of regulations for emissions that will be paused during the lifetime of this bill, because you don't have to go check emissions. You're already accounting for the carbon dioxide being created at the fuel source. You already know how much is going to be out there. So you don't have to go and have people doing checking and being fined and that kind of stuff. So Democrats and Republicans, fewer last session than the session before, but we do have Republicans who have signed on to the bill, and we're looking for more. This is just to show you local government support. We have 17 communities, either counties or cities in Wisconsin, more than 100 across the country, but Wisconsin has 17, working on 18 that have already signed on to support this bill in the form of a local resolution. Appleton agreed to support the bill in August or September, I believe. And we just want to highlight that there's a couple of exceptions. Agricultural and military fuel use will have some levels of exceptions for this, so that they are not, because they tend to be very high fuel users, and we want to make sure that we're not causing them any challenges. And then fossil fuel investment will decrease, excuse me. Renewable energy investments will increase because it will be incentivized by the change, the balance of the cost of the energy, and the market decides who's the winners and losers, not the government. The government isn't creating more regulation or more laws around that. We've done a lot. There has been a lot of modeling around this bill done. I can provide information if you're interested at another time. I think I just wanted to show you this information to show you that this household, the impact, this is called the household impact study. And these impacts are that 86% of households in the lowest 20th percentile for income will actually come out ahead. So their increased energy cost will be more than offset by the dividend they receive. Now, once you get up to the highest quintile, the highest 20th percent, they have a lot more stuff. So their carbon footprint's bigger. So they will see, they will not be made whole by the dividend, but they're the highest income levels in the United States. They have 2 boats, 2 houses, 3 cars, whatever. Their carbon footprint is very large. They can make decisions about that if they choose. But the purpose of this graph is to show you that we are not handicapping the people in the lower economic rungs of our economy by doing this bill. And in fact, many of them will end up ahead. I'm not going to go through this because I've run out of time pretty much. Just show you the GDP increases, employment increases. We've seen this has been done in other places. One of the closest examples is British Columbia. The Canadian province was the test case for Canada. They've been doing this since 2008. Typically, you'll hear from people who don't like climate solutions that it'll kill the economy. And that has been disproven in British Columbia and in all the other places that it's been looked at. And all of Canada has now enacted this about 1.5 years ago. And CO2 emissions will decrease, which is what we're looking for. If we do nothing, they'll increase over time. Temperature will continue to go up. And this is the Wall Street Journal article that's called the Economist Statement on, my alarm's about to go off, sorry. Stop. The Economist Statement on carbon dividends, and it has been signed on by 3,500 economists all over the globe, some of them in Appleton, Lawrence University professors, endorsing carbon fee and dividend as the best way to manage carbon dioxide in our atmosphere. The Climate Leadership Council also supports this. The Business Roundtable of top businesses also supports carbon fee and dividend. I'm not going to read that. These are local governments that have endorsed it. And then I will just say that it is possible to do this, but we have to show political will. And in order to show political will, we need community support to do that. So that's why we're talking to you guys today. I don't know how to stop sharing my screen. Anybody got any ideas?
I'll attempt to see if I can do it on my side. Otherwise, if you
I
kind of
have
like if you put your cursor maybe towards the top or the bottom of your screen, something might pop up.
No, and all I've got for you guys is a small window with 4 people in it. And I'm trying to make it bigger so I can.
Kate, are you still there?
Shoot, yeah, I am.
Am I
I just-
still here?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, no.
I can't tell if I got thrown off. Can anybody hear
No,
me?
you're still here, Margie. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, that's why I answered you.
Thank you. Okay.
I'm just
So
trying
we
to
still
figure out how to
have
make
you,
this
but we
bigger.
still have your screen.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't figure out how to make this bigger, guys.
Well, that's okay. Maybe Brandon can help you with that. And in the meantime, we could take any questions that
Oh, I
anyone
found out how
has.
to do it. Stop sharing.
Ah,
there you go.
boy, all the wonderful things we learn, huh?
It had gone
Yeah,
to
The
you-
program's just a
Yeah.
little different.
Yeah.
Okay,
Kate,
if anyone has any questions, you can either raise your hand if you have the participant screen up. No, you can't. That's not apparently working tonight. Oh, yeah, it is.
There it
If
is.
you want to raise your hand on there, it's the one just before the video button. Or you could just raise your hand like this too. I think I have pretty much everybody on the screen. Okay, Ken, I see your hand up.
And Ken, before you begin, this is Brandon real quick again. So Ken had put a comment in the chat that he wanted to ask a question after this. So I just want to, Ken, you missed the last meeting. So just wanted to let you know I was informed after a previous meeting that the chat is to be used only for technical difficulties. So try to use, the virtual hand raise or as you just did on your video, please. Thank you.
Sure. Sorry about that.
So many
guess
rules. How are you to
because
know?
When reading the bill and knowing how government tends to work, are there any concerns at all about handcuffing the EPA and controlling CO2 emissions for about 10 years?
No. No. We don't handcuff the EPA. We actually free them up to do some other stuff. I know that sounds really, highfalutin, but this is a solution that's been very, very heavily worked through with people in the EPA. So that I know that our guy who's in charge of policy and governmental affairs has been working on helping to create this bill. And we are very, very cognizant that we want to make sure that the EPA can function. And this simply removes part of what they have to do for a little while. Is that making sense?
Already control. Well, I would be concerned about any possibility of executive branch shenanigans with the execution of the bill when the EPA has that restriction.
This doesn't restrict the EPA.
Okay. And related to this, are there any concerns that you would have from your perspective in trading away what would be perceived as trading away existing environmental law in favor of a new bill? Does it set up precedent? Perhaps we don't want to.
I understand your concern, and I can assure you that actually, go ahead, Pat. Do you have an answer?
Pat, you're on mute.
Unmute.
Pat, you're on mute.
Just something you could clarify, Kate. The regulatory pause is just on carbon dioxide emissions. It's not on other environmental regulations. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then there's also a part built into the bill that if the emissions are not dropping enough, then what happens then?
Then they go back and revisit. They reinstate the inspection and regulation managed part.
Oh, carbon dioxide, yeah. So this
Yep.
doesn't. They can still regulate mercury pollution and
Yeah, this doesn't
And
cause any.
particulate matter and all that stuff, that still gets regulated, right?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that kind of what you were concerned about, Ken, or were you more focused on
Well, the thing of it is, one of the single most powerful tools the EPA has had is actually regulating CO2 emissions. And so when just a little concern, not, showstopper, but I always get a little bit leery when we take such a control and kind of touch on it. And I'm always worried about how people in the executive branch could kind of toy with that or interpret it in their own way to actually circumvent the intent of the law. So that's what I was getting at. It's a very powerful tool the EPA has, and I just don't want to endanger that at all.
Jill, you
Jill,
want to
do you
weigh in
have
on
something
that?
you'd like to add?
Yes, actually, I worked for a paper company before retiring, and I did all of the air permitting, et cetera. So regulating CO2 is relatively new, meaning I believe it's in the last 5 years. And a lot of times when EPA regulates it, it's only affected when a company upgrades or builds a new plant. So without anything happening, there's no motivation to reduce CO2 emissions, or to even kind of look at it. So if you're looking at it from a regulatory perspective, EPA is still making sure everyone's following the rules that they have or the requirements in their existing permits. That doesn't change that. But what happens with a carbon cashback plan is you can reduce carbon dioxide emissions so much quicker than EPA ever could do with regulating. I don't know if that makes sense.
It's good that you share.
Yep, and usually, companies will sit around, how can we get around this? So I understand, the shenanigans or how can we twist this around? Because I've been there. So this one is very hard to twist because it's easy to determine how much of a material you have.
Right.
How much of this material you're selling and figure out how to tax it. It's very hard to find a loophole. I'm sure someone will, or try.
They'll try.
Okay, Ken, more questions?
Well, I'm always concerned about unintended consequences of certain things when we're studying them. Kind of forecasting or investigation has been done to ensure that an unintended consequence of this bill being enacted would actually promote mining for coal and natural gas?
That is a great question. And I'm super excited you're a statistician. I love statistics. I was a scientist at Kimberly-Clark and I worked in statistical areas a lot. I will refer you to a thing called the En-ROADS climate model, EN-ROADS, and I will be more than happy to send a link later, climate model. And that climate model will help you to see that there are fabulous, it's a wonderful question, the unintended consequences, that when you look at that model, you'll have the opportunity to play with it. And if you want to chat with me, I could teach you how to use it. It's very easy. I'm super excited. But what that shows is of the 17 knobs they give you to change to find out what's going to have the biggest impact on carbon dioxide and temperature change, a carbon fee and dividend is the biggest impact.
Okay.
And it doesn't like the unintended consequence might be, for example, people driving electric cars. If we make everybody drive an electric car, we'll solve our pollution problem, right? No, we get people more, we need more coal because we get so much electricity from coal. Electricity use goes up, coal use goes up. All of a sudden, the temperature stays the same or doesn't, or actually increases. So That's the kind of modeling we've looked at. There's also the REMI study, which I referred to as well, which has some other modeling information in it. So I can provide you links with that.
To that, you did touch on it in the presentation a little bit. The answer be to somebody who would say, okay, people in the upper strata of income decide they're not going to have boats and 5 cars and helicopters or whatever they're going to have, and they're what would the answer be to say, oh, well, that affects middle class and lower middle class jobs if people aren't buying those things? What's the economic impact study of that? I'm sure there's an answer.
I'm sure there is an answer. I don't know that I can tell you exactly what happens there. I can say that that hasn't happened in British Columbia. They've been doing this experiment for more than 10 years. And so we can say that there are set examples where we know that it could be. Well, how can I answer that? I can't assure you that people aren't going to stop buying boats and cars. Things are going to change. The economy will shift. Things will shift. But from the modeling that's been done, we haven't seen that there's a loss of loss of income for lower and middle income people because of those shifts in the way that we start to use energy.
I'm a pilot. This is an aviation. You know, people own aircraft. People fly aircraft.
Mm-hmm.
Be a really strong, concrete answer for, hey, wait a minute, I know I'm rich, but I do work at the airplane plant.
Mm-hmm.
So
the thing is that airplanes don't go away. Airplanes don't go away because of this. It means that airplane fuel or let's say gasoline will cost in about 10 years. I mean, the expectation is that it will increase gasoline about 12 cents a gallon in the next 5 years. So it's not huge. That impact isn't huge, but the cost of goods and all that other stuff will increase. And I can't tell you the answer for aviation. I don't know it off the top of my head.
Well,
I know that the modeling.
Use it as an example, yeah. But we're a town that uses boats. We have to be able to address or at least think through those consequences and measure them to some degree to have an appropriate response for this to get buy-in. So I mean, I get what you're saying about the gas prices. I mean, somebody on OPEC gets indigestion and it goes up or down 12 cents. So, but there is a serious sort of response you have to have for somebody who would have those concerns.
Okay. I guess I don't have an answer for that. I can find out what the anticipate. It hasn't come up in any other discussions that people are concerned about the answers to how much, are people going to change their fuel consumption? Probably they are. I think what we were showing you in the graph where it showed that most people's income, that most people actually came out ahead in the lower parts of the income quadrants or quintiles, means that they don't actually have to shift their energy use patterns at all. And we're not trying to get individuals to shift their patterns. We're trying to get corporations and larger entities to demand lower carbon fuels because they're the ones who really have a voice in a lot of the bigger questions around how energy is generated.
I was just thinking in terms of if rich people have to lower their use or change their habits, that may result in fewer units being produced, and the people producing those things would be impacted in some way. I'm just trying to have an answer to that. Now, one argument would be is that by doing this, you're actually creating a pipeline for corporations locally like Sonics who are developing an electric plane. That could be the positive consequences, creating more jobs, more technology, that kind of a thing. I'm just trying to create some sort of how do we have that discussion with the community sort of thing.
Yeah. And that's a really insightful point, but I believe that's what that free market stimulus does, is it starts pushing us towards these other solutions that are low carbon solutions. I wonder what Mercury, in the long run, most of these corporations are going to have to think of how are they going to power their the things they create, like Mercury Marine and so on. And what are the solutions they're going to come up with? Well, maybe they're just going to pay more for gas, because gas is still going to exist. But what else is there? Yeah.
Pat, did you have
Real quick.
something you wanted to add? You're on mute again.
Okay, I think what you were saying about changing how things work, that's part of the idea behind this act, is it gives economic incentives to companies to start looking at different ways of doing things that will switch to less production of CO2, whether it's electric or biofuels or whatever. It's to give that economic push to do that, to make that transition. And then Kate, what is the REMI study?
The Regional Economic Modeling Institute, I believe, is the REMI study, and it was just updated. And let me just, I lost you guys. Sorry, my screen keeps jumping. The REMI study was done initially in 2014, and it was just refreshed in 2020. And we went to the Regional Economic Modeling Institute, or whatever it is, because that's the modeling group that does all of the work for the larger oil companies, and for generally conservative groups use REMI. And that's why Citizens Climate Lobby did, because we wanted to make sure that the data and the source of that data was basically unimpeachable. This is the modeling place you guys all go, all you conservative think tanks go here. So that's where we went. And the modeling that shows the increase in jobs and the offset of income and so on and so forth comes from that group.
Okay, are there any other board members that have any questions they'd like to ask? I'm not seeing any hands. Okay, well, Kate, are you going to be sending, if you want to just forward to Brandon or to me the links that you mentioned, maybe give us the one for REMI too.
Yep.
And you've already shared the PowerPoint with us, so we could refer back to that if we needed to too.
Yeah.
Oh, I see Bob has a question.
Sure, it's not necessarily a question, it's about next steps. So I know we're not necessarily as a committee noticed to discuss what's next steps we may take, but I guess I just, I guess the next question is when we're going to discuss what our next month's agenda might be, that we come back to this in regards to whether we want to take that step and create a resolution to suggest to the council. So that was it.
I already wrote that down, Bob. We got her.
All right.
And I just wanted to thank you guys for letting me take all of this time, because I could talk forever. But we also have sample resolutions, and we can send you the example of the resolution that Appleton did pass in August, which John and others here, Brown, worked on. And I will make sure to send you any other links that I can think of that'll be handy. And I really appreciate your time, and thank you all very much for listening.
Thank you very much for coming. I appreciate you putting this back up in the spotlight for us. So probably 5 years ago, we had somebody from CCL come up from Milwaukee and share the whole concept with us, but we've changed many board members since then. So I'm sure this was new to several people. Okay, well, thank you guys. And we will move on with our go back to our agenda here. The next thing up that we have is our Energy Innovation Grant discussion and update. And I'm going to turn that over to you, Brad, or Brandon. I'm not sure. Both of you.
I can provide an update. I'm not sure if I spoke to Brad after I had the conversation with Mark Lyons and Alan Davis from my departments. So, you know, Brad has provided this information to us, and I set up a meeting with my boss and then my boss's boss, basically. And we looked through some of the previous applicants' approved grants and tried to come up with potentially something that we were ready to apply for. And it was basically determined that at this moment, the city doesn't really have anything in place that we felt comfortable applying for, or that we were prepared to apply for. You know, like one of the things we've been looking at for some time now is, for instance, like electric vehicle charging stations, or you know, or like a fleet of those electric vehicles, as Eric's project that he's been working on is about. And like one of the examples from the 2018 approved grants was the city of Madison. You know, they had applied for this money to cover the difference between money that was already going to be used to purchase 20 vehicles, and they just covered the difference to, you know, get those 20 vehicles from gas to electric. We don't have anything currently in the CIP for any of the coming years to do anything like that, even in regards to electric vehicle charging stations. So at this moment, with the activities that were available with this grant, they didn't feel like we were ready to apply for anything at this moment. So hopefully it comes back in 2 years, and it's going to be a goal of mine to, we're going to try to, you know, figure out something that we can get potentially into the CIP, and hopefully that gets approved, and then we can apply for this grant to help fund that project further, whatever it may be.
Okay, does that make sense to everybody? Any questions? Pat?
Oh, I should probably know, but what's a CIP? What is
Capital Improvement Project.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I mean, it's my understanding that that's basically the fund that gets, you know, all the construction that occurs throughout the city is basically proposed, and then it gets approved. Bob may be able to enlighten us a little bit on that process.
Okay, well, let's move on then to our social media discussion. Let's see, that would probably be Brandon and Vic.
Hello.
Hi, Vic. It's good to see your face.
Thanks. So yeah, social media stuff. I have definitely been slacking on sending any information to Brandon. Sorry about that. Work has been fun. Thank you though to Margie for sending me an email with some great ideas, things that I can definitely make some posts about. Greatly appreciated. Anytime anyone has anything, emails, random things that pop up, good topics, really just helps to motivate and encourage. Brandon has sent me some of the like Facebook data stuff that he pulled from our page. Numbers are fairly consistent with where they were the last time we kind of pulled numbers, so pretty low. We had a couple bigger engagement days, of course, like when we post. One of the larger ones to note was actually back in October. It was one of the posts it was like about beeswax wraps. A local business had them for sale and was promoting them as like a great Christmas present. We shared their post. That was actually one of our highest interaction days. 52 people saw that. So that was really encouraging. Yeah, that's really about all I have. Just looking to be more consistent for this year, for 2021. That's definitely on me. Just be making more posts more regularly and sending them forward. That's about all I have.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
I wanted to ask the committee here. I was planning on posting that you guys had passed the fossil fuel resolution. I know that we're going to talk about that in a minute, but everybody's comfortable with me posting that was passed and then just sharing that document out there. That's okay with everyone, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine. It was all over the Herald anyway, so.
Yeah.
No, I think it's really good that we do include what actions we take, because I think the general public either doesn't know we exist or they think we don't do anything. So we've been not doing anything for a really long time with a lot of energy here, haven't we? So. Okay, well, talking about fossil fuel divestment, which is the resolution that Brandon's referring to, do you want to give us an update on that, Brandon, or you all saw probably the letter that we got from finance? What I took that to mean was that we just simply weren't prepared enough. And you may have other takes on this, but there must be some language in there that they didn't feel comfortable with. And rather than deciding to work with us on that to change that, it sounds like they just pretty much disavowed it. Is that your take on it, Bob? Am I reading that correctly? I mean, it sounds like it's going to go to the council with no change, but that they said these changes don't work, so.
Well, I'm going to act stymied because I don't know what letter you're alluding to.
Oh, did we send this out? I thought it was one of our.
Yeah, it should have been in the meeting.
It was in the packet, I
email.
think. It's addressed to members of the Sustainability Advisory Board from Russ Van Gompel. And it says the Long Range Finance Committee received a proposed resolution and discussed the impact of it on a proposed investment policy at its December 2nd meeting. The unapproved copy of the minutes are attached, and they did send us that. After considerable conversation about the SAB resolution and its potential on the impact to staff and the desired effects on investments held by the city of Oshkosh under Wisconsin statutes, the Long Range Finance Committee decided to not include any of the provisions of the SAB resolution in their recommended investment policy to the city council. Please be advised that the city cannot invest in open-ended corporate securities. The city does invest in some pooled funds that are created specifically for municipalities. These funds may have other investment products that change on a daily basis and cannot effectively be monitored by city staff. The portfolio of these funds may include some investments that are not compliant with the SAB resolution, and staff does not have resources to monitor the daily activity of these municipal funds.
So.
At no point had I thought that we had included something in there that required additional staff work after maybe an initial instruction to whoever the broker is that says we don't want to invest in this. So clearly there's something in there that there's some lack of communication.
So I have a concern with the letter. So the letter discusses a general discussion that the Long Range Finance Committee had, that it was not an agenda-based discussion. It was, oh, the SAB is talking about this, and they have this resolution that they'd like us to take a thought on. That took place before our December meeting, before we finalized that resolution that basically advised that we wanted their thorough input into that process. It's hard to accept that letter, even though I just read it in the last 4 minutes, because it suggests that at the moment they don't want to take the time to look into the impacts of this as it relates to long range financial stability in this. And so my concern is that the SAB made a decision after they had their December meeting, specifically asking them to take this up as a serious item to discuss. So my opinion is that, the board chair and Brandon and Russ and the board chair of the Long Range Finance Committee maybe hash this out a little bit and say this is, there's a short-term picture to this in regards to getting it to the council, but then there's a long-term picture to this. And that's what we were wanting them to see. That's what we need to communicate to the Long Range Finance Committee is that long-term impact of that. So.
Okay, well, that had frankly been my first inclination, was just to call Mr. Van Gompel and say, let's talk about this. However, I'm reading this and I should ask him. I can call tomorrow and ask. Yeah, I don't want this to go to the council and be voted down before we have a chance to work on it or discuss it with Long Range Finance. So I don't know if it's already headed that way or if there's a way to put the brakes on that.
I can request that, so that the wishes of the SAB is for the Long Range Finance Committee to take a dive into this, in the impact of this resolution on long range finances, and that it not go to council until that's been done. So
Okay.
I can try that. That's not a problem.
Okay, well, and let me see if I can reach out to him tomorrow and set something up so that we can talk about it, because frankly, this kind of took me by surprise. I wasn't anticipating a dismissal quite that quickly, I guess.
And as we left it at the last month's meeting, I had a direct conversation with the chair of the Long Range Finance Committee, indicating that they were welcome, that this topic was welcome to their agenda, that they wanted to talk about it, that he would direct and be supportive of this discussion with the Long Range Finance Committee.
Okay, well then I will take that back and I will work on making that happen so that we can explain ourselves a little more thoroughly, find out if there is some language that needs changed, and make sure that there is a discussion about it. I'm glad we had this little chat.
Right, and there was
Something
Does
to add.
anybody have anything they'd like to add to this? Michelle?
Go ahead, Michelle.
there were minutes as part of our.
I'm sorry, you're really
packet, right?
soft. Can you talk louder?
Yeah, just a second.
There, I turned up my amp too.
I tried turning up my headphones, but it was a little bit loud.
Okay,
on your
I
guys'
can hear
end.
you now.
Okay. Anyway, the minutes were included from the Long Range Finance Committee in our packet, right? And that was from the 2nd. We're saying that was before even our December meeting. So they didn't look at the language. They just said, oh, they're thinking about this. There's no way that we can do that. And we're not gonna do anything about that. We're not gonna look at it. This is just gonna go as it is.
They had the draft.
Okay.
They had the draft from the meeting before. They just didn't have our final approved one, where we had made the change to send it to them, ironically.
So my comments were going to be, in those same minutes, and tell me if I'm reading these wrong, but it appeared to me that during that meeting, they voted to pass their investment policy, or I'm not too sure what it was called. And that is now going to be given to council. So I guess
Correct. That's what I read from it too. And I think that just means that this wouldn't be a part of it this year.
Okay, so is that something they do every year?
I don't know how frequently they do that. I assume it's an annual basis.
Because I'm just wondering if it was their prerogative to vote on this, even though it wasn't passed yet by us or by you guys, that they were trying to, get a vote on it to be either included or not within what they're going to present to council. I don't know.
That could be maybe where they're saying this investment policy doesn't mean the divestment policy. It just means the investment policy that they were working on before.
So, I mean, that's our common ground there, right? So,
Right.
I mean, our objective here is not to stop progress that we're doing.
No.
It's to find ways that we can incorporate progress. So they may have approved that policy, and that may be on its way to council as well as this resolution. Those aren't negative steps, right? I mean, if that's the case, we can, still do what you were doing, Margie, and asking, to meet with Russ Van Gompel and to discuss, here's what are our future steps. Maybe we are behind on this a little bit, but we want to make sure that the next time that this comes up, that this is, is given a fair shake in regards to being part of that investment policy. So,
And we could answer any questions they may have if what we wrote wasn't clear, or we may have questions for them that they can answer too. So, Michelle?
I think if we can pose it too as, maybe not to look at this as, yeah, we're going to include everything or not. It's how do we get there? If we can't do this right now, what are the steps that we need to take so that we can do this? So I think that's kind of an important way to figure out, like, what is our path to get there if they don't think that this is something that we can do at this time.
Okay, got it.
Moving forward.
Any other input from anyone on this? Okay, then. Moving on to agenda items for a future meeting. Kate had provided, I guess she didn't remember, but she had provided us with a copy of the resolution that there's a boilerplate one, a template. Then she also gave us a copy of Appleton's, which was very similar to that. And it is, I believe, a resolution that we would want to take up. So I will put it on the agenda for next month. We can have it all ready to go by then. It's, like I said, it's written for us pretty much. And again, I do understand why it's very important. I'm sure Pat can speak to this too, having both been involved with CCL for a number of years. We understand that creating the political will to make something like this happen at a national level is going to take a lot of pressure from lower levels. I myself was involved in a call, the ask with our state representative to Congress nationally. And it was, well, let's just say he hasn't signed on. I wouldn't anticipate that. It would be great if he did. But there are a number of other people across the country who are. So hopefully this can pass sometime with bipartisan vote. But in the meantime, the more pressure we can create on this for this locally and on up the chain, the more chance it has to be accepted. Do you have anything you'd like to add to that, Pat? You're on mute again.
No, but I think it's a really important thing to consider our city supporting this. And I think it's not a complete solution, but it's a really important part. I'm not sure you can have a good solution to climate change without putting some kind of price on carbon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well, that will be on next month's agenda. We will have some sort of a report on the fossil fuel divestment, wherever that's at that point. Is there anything else anybody would like to add to next month's? I want to say somebody had, did you have something else, Bob, or did we just cover that?
mine was making sure that we had the resolution, climate change resolution on there.
Okay. Anyone else have anything to put on next month's agenda? Okay.
We're gonna revisit the goals after tonight's workshop, or
Yes. The goals will be, we'll go through those and we may come up with all kinds of things by then, but we just had to do this.
just kind of a recap
now before we adjourn.
But I'm asking, do you guys want goals on the next agenda as a recap, kind of just
Oh, I see what you mean. Yes. Goals and plans for 2021. Aren't y'all glad it's 2021? Yeah. Okay, then, in that case, I would entertain a motion to adjourn to workshop session so that we can discuss our goals. Someone like to make that motion?
I'll
I
move
would-
to
Is there
workshop.
an adjournment or not?
This is an adjournment to workshop session.
All right. I'll make an motion to adjourn to the 2021 goal planning workshop.
I second.
Thank you, Bob. Second?
I second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, then.